Hi, I'm Wendy, and normally my channel has nursing videos and a little bit about my renovations, but today I absolutely felt compelled to do a video about Black Lives Matter in Australia. So firstly, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where I live, the Bunurong Nation, and I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Now, as the world mourns George Floyd and we're being confronted by images that you just cannot unsee, I struggled to find a word that was going to adequately describe what I was seeing. And the word flagitious came into my vocabulary. Now let me read it to you. It means extremely wicked, deeply criminal, heinous, grievous and monstrous. And sadly this applies to Australia too. And I hear you say, no it doesn't. I'm sorry, yes it does. Now, I was first introduced to Australia's real history in year 12. And if you don't want to hear about horror stories, then stop the video now and go and watch something about cute kittens and puppies. But in year 12, my English teacher was telling us stories of our real history. And the one that I will never unhear is the one where she was telling me that white settlers and soldiers buried Aboriginal babies up to their necks and used their heads as footballs. And I wanted to vomit. It was incredulous that something so horrendous actually happened. And I was trying to reconcile what I knew of Australia with these stories, and I desperately wanted them not to be true. And this was my white privilege on show for all to see. You see, while I was blissfully unaware, this was the reality for people living in the same country as me. It made me uncomfortable. It made me launch into a state of denial. It made me angry that I had been confronted with something so evil. And in my quest to find the truth, I found out that we have been systemically and legally being flagitious to hundreds of thousands of our indigenous Australians. So let me tell you through the years what I've learned. I've learned about the Black Line in Tasmania, and in fact there wasn't just one, there was 3. And this is where groups of 2,000 soldiers or more would form a human chain and walk across the countryside to flush out the indigenous Australians. I learned about the bounty, £5 for an adult and £2 for a child, alive or dead. I learned about the White Australia policy and the forcible removal of children from their families, taken hundreds of miles away and raised without any connection to their heritage. Now, these children were raised so that they could go and be domestic servants, often the subject of rape, often the subject of abuse, and often not paid. This is Australia's slavery. I learnt that while native title was granted in 1991, that Aboriginal owners of their own land weren't allowed to build dwellings on their own land the first of which was built in 2014, only 6 years ago. I learned that the legislation that framed the forcible removal of children from their parents was framed under the criminal code, so that every child who was forcibly removed from their families had a criminal record. This then meant that wherever any of these children went, even as adults, any misdemeanor was seen as a second offence because they already had a criminal record. Their only crime was that they were stolen from their families. It also meant that if a police car is driving down the road, they see somebody who has a criminal record and they pull them over. This means that the children who were stolen are already being brandished as criminals before they've even said, "Can I help you?" I learned about the incarceration of Australian Aboriginals. And in many states, you can be jailed for unpaid fines. Now most of these are traffic offences: not using your indicator, parking in the wrong spot. And if you are so poor that you cannot afford to pay a fine, you do jail time. The number of indigenous Australians who are too poor to pay for things are ending up in jail for a motor vehicle infringement. That's abhorrent. And in progressive Australia, we only repealed this in November of 2019. That was only 6 months ago. Up until 6 months ago, Indigenous Australians were being jailed for failing to turn on their indicator. And this is the reality for those living in the oldest living culture in the world. So why on earth are we tearing it down instead of lifting it up? But you see, we can. We can listen, we can learn, but don't learn somebody else's history from someone with white privilege. Don't learn somebody else's history from me. Learn from those who have the stories to tell, and do your own research. Learn about people like David Dungay and Eddie Mabo. Have a look at what else people like Adam Goods and Kathy Freeman and Yvonne Cawley have done besides their amazing contributions to sport. Have a look at the literary work of Uncle Jack Charles. Google Millicent's story. Learn about the language and the nation from where you live. Learn about your own local history. It's amazing. Now, I've included some links in the description that are a really good place to start. Now, one is a website called Creative Spirits, and that's got an amazing amount of information on it. And the other one that I want to draw your attention to is the Blackfella Book Club. So I'll put a link in the description for that as well. That has an array of books written by Indigenous authors, everything from sci-fi to children's books. So if you're a bookworm, go to the Blackfella Book Club and you'll find something that interests you. Even just step out of your comfort zone if it's something that's a little bit foreign to you. We all have to step out of our comfort zones. But the Blackfella Book Club, brilliant. You see, this is why Australians are marching. This is why it's so important for Australians to speak up now while the world is listening. People have been screaming for 250 years and nobody has really been listening. Even the Royal Commission into Aboriginal deaths in custody has seen a further 432 deaths whilst in custody. Even the recommendations of a Royal Commission fell on deaf ears. So now it's time to stop and to listen. Truly listen. So as a white woman of privilege, all I have is an opinion and a platform. So I urge you to listen to those with first-hand experiences. I urge you to learn from those with first-hand experiences. And for anybody with a platform, I urge you to promote those with first-hand experiences. I'm going to include a video here for Reconciliation Australia, and it's a really great place to start learning. And initially I felt really impotent and powerless, but there's something really quite cathartic in promoting others and seeing them shine. The thing that I've really learnt through all this is that I don't have to occupy the driver's seat, that there are other people more qualified than I am to do that. So if you really want to help, listen, learn, promote, and protect. Thanks for watching.